What is up, everyone? We have another UFC Fight Night card to break down from a Draftkings DFS perspective. This week, UFC St. Louis, we have a 13-fight card and a 5-round main event that will probably only go 2 rounds at most. And the co-main is Joaquin Buckley versus Ruziboev. And I guess the overall theme I want to point out right off the bat is we have a lot of very competitive fights. There's not a lot of chalk. We have Rebecki, who I believe is the biggest favorite on the card at a minus 400. And then besides that, everyone I think is under minus 250 for the most part, outside of Ulberg. So a very competitive fight night card that should carry a lot of wins for underdogs. So that should make for a very fun DFS slate. Usually when you have a chalky slate, it's not as good for DFS because there just tends to be a lot more duplication, a lot less real combinations that can be made. But in this slate, I think there's a lot of chaos. I think there's a lot of room to build great lineups, really high upside lineups. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We got the betting market, the prop market, and then as well as my own takes and opinions here and there. But we got everything we need to break down this card. Let's go ahead and start from the top and work our way towards the middle. So we have Rebecki versus Ferreira, the widest line on the card, as I mentioned. Rebecki, a big 4-1 favorite. And he also has takedown upside as well. So you got a 9.4K guy that's a healthy money line favorite. Going to have a good ITD line. It's not out yet, but he's going to have a good ITD line. I think it's a good play. Single entry is almost a staple. You're going to get the 90 to 110 points very consistently. And he's a guy who, just tends to score well in his wins so far. So I think Rebecki, even though he's pretty pricey at 9.4K, he looks to be a pretty good play. And then Diego Ferreira, 6.8K plus 330. I don't really know his ITD line yet, but I imagine his ITD line will be somewhat similar to his win odds. It's an MME play only. I wouldn't touch it in 20 or below. Then we got Carlos Ulberg versus Alonzo Menifield. Ulberg, 9.3K. Pure striker for the most part. Not really high volume. He's 205. So, like I always say, these heavier weight class pure strikers, they don't throw out a lot of volume, and you really have to rely on their ability to finish the fight in terms of DFS scoring. So he's one of those guys. He's a healthy money line. You got 1.5 round line, pretty even. For him, I want to see at least minus 110 because he is a pure striker and not that high volume. He's about minus 130. I guess it's fine. What is he in round 1? I want to see the round 1 line for him. Plus 250. Okay. I guess it's between okay and good. I'm going to call it okay, to be honest with you, depending on what else we see. Just because he is low volume and he is a pure striker. And then Menifield on the other side, 6.9K. You don't need much out of a 6.9K fighter. Maybe plus 350 or so ITD line would be good for him. Menifield does have a touch of takedown upside, but it's not really that reliable. So plus 350, plus 300. That's pretty good in my book. So I think Menifield sticks out as the first low salary punt play that looks very strong. So yeah, I like both sides of this. And Menifield, especially as a low salary underdog, looks to have a lot of upside. Then we got Kevin Jousset, Jared Gooden. I believe Jousset is just about a 2-1 favorite in this matchup, which he is. Okay, 214. He is 9.2K, so pretty pricey. I want to see minus 110 for him as well. He has a bit of takedown upside, but it's, once again, just not that consistent or reliable. And he's, I would say medium volume, not really low volume, not really high volume. He's kind of average. So yeah, I'd like to see a good ITD line from him, minus 110. It's like plus 175, removing the VIG. It's a pretty weak play on paper at 9.2K. Now, because of that, will he be much lower owned than Rebecki and Ulberg? I think so. He probably will be. So for that reason, when we get to the MME discussion, right, he's probably a decent play. But for just the best plays and the best metrics, he doesn't really stick out. And then Jared Gooden plus 350 at 7K. Yeah, it's like right about on the edge of where I'd want it to be. So I think Gooden is fringy or fine. I'll call him a fine play. Yeah, so I like Gooden on the side of this fight, and that's about it. Jousset, I guess MME, depending on ownership, you can play him, but he's not that good of a play on paper. Sean Woodson, Alex Caceres. Sean Woodson, I think this fight will look pretty bad. Sean Woodson, pretty much another guy who's medium volume striker, can mix in takedowns occasionally, but once again, not that reliable. 2-1 favorite, heavily favored to go the distance. I just don't think this will look all that good from a scoring perspective. Plus 400, yeah, it looks like a stone cold fade unless you're playing the 150. And Caceres plus 450. This fight just looks like a pass. Then Despaigne versus Cortez Acosta. Okay, so this is the first elite play, I think. We have Despaigne, who's a 2-1 favorite. He's 9K flat. All of his wins have come inside of 2 minutes or so. He, let's see, what is he in? Minus 180 ITD. So his win condition is basically a finish, is what that's telling us. And what is he in round one? Pick him in round one, minus 120 on round one. I think Despaigne is an elite play here at 9K flat. Will he be high owned? Yeah, he probably will be, but he's a good play. And then Cortez Acosta, 7.2K, plus 300 ish. I'd want to see plus 250. Okay, I guess by definition it's a pretty good play, especially when you consider the fact that Despaigne will probably be very high owned. But I will say, and I usually don't do this, but this ITD line for Cortez Acosta seems a bit fishy to me. I've watched him fight. He's pretty much a pure boxer. He's one of those volume strikers at the heavier weight classes. Yes, he has some finishes on his record, but do I really think he can finish Despaigne? Or do I really think he's plus 215 to finish Despaigne? I don't know. I think this line seems a bit too juiced. I think that this line should be a lot worse, but if I am taking the lines at face value, then yeah, Acosta's a good play. But for me personally, I just don't really think I have a lot of interest in playing Acosta this week. Then we got Ribovic versus McKinney, another fight that looks very, very good. McKinney is going to be the stronger side. So you have a fight that's favored to go pretty much one round. And in terms of the odds, it's like 60%, 40%. McKinney is probably the preferred side just because he is 7.3K. And he has all the takedown upside. Well, I guess both guys have the potential to have takedown upside, but like McKinney has finishing upside, takedown upside. He's underdog 7.3K. He looks like a very strong play. I'm actually going to call him an elite play. And then Ribovic may be a bit overpriced here at 8.9K because there was some line movement on this fight. But he still has a ceiling on him. Like there's no doubt about it. Like just talking about ceiling, these guys both have a good ceiling. It's just McKinney is priced better for that ceiling. So I think McKinney is the preferred side, but both sides of this fight look very strong for a GPP perspective. Next up, Trey Waters, Billy Goff. Another 60-40-ish fight with its favorite to knock out the distance. So I think both sides of this will look good. Billy Goff, 7.4K, should be another very strong underdog to target. He has plus 300 ITD. I guess it's good. So I'll say Goff is a good play. And then Trey Waters, plus 105. What's his price again? 8.8K. Yeah, I guess it's on the edge of being good as well. So I think both sides of this fight are right on the edge of being good and okay. And Billy Goff is right next to McKinney as a good underdog that has upside, in my opinion. So, yeah, I like both sides. I guess that's all I can really say about it. Buckley versus Ruziboev. 8.7K for Joaquin Buckley. It's about 60-40 fight again. Once again, a lot of very competitive fights on this card as far as the odds go. Fights favored to not go the distance. Buckley 8.7K minus 110 would be elite, I would say. Minus 110. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I was gonna say like plus 120 would be good. Minus 110 would be elite, and he's minus 110. So I think that's a pretty elite play. Ruziboev on the other hand has plus 200 ITD line at 7.5K. That's pretty good as well. So a lot of very high upside fights I'm seeing so far. I do think we haven't even gone through the whole card yet, but just off the first 5 or so fights that I've looked at, I think this card is going to have a very high score for the winning upside, and you're going to really need to get that upside to have a chance here. Buckley Hadley versus Charles Johnson. This is a fight I think is kind of a dud. You got a fight that's heavily favored to go all 3 rounds, another 60-40-ish type of fight. I don't think the ITD lines for either guy will rate to be too high, which they aren't. So yeah, I think this fight just looks like a dud. Of course, low ownership, MME, yeah, it's viable, but for just the best plays, it doesn't stick out to be anywhere near a good play. Borschev versus Hooper. This is another fight that's, I believe, 60-40, right? Yep, pretty much, maybe 55-45 in terms of the odds. And it's heavily favored to end by finish. And you have a very, very binary matchup here in the sense that, yes, this fight is competitive on the odds, but whoever wins will probably look like major value, right? If Chase Hooper wins, it's because Borschev can't defend any takedowns, and he probably gets finished or just dominated with the grappling, and Hooper will look like a minus 300 favorite. But if Borschev wins, it's because he stuffs the takedowns and probably knocks out Hooper early, and he'll look like a big favorite. So I think whoever wins this fight will score extremely well in DFS. I like both sides. ITD lines, I don't really need to look, but minus 110, elite stuff for Borschev. So I think Borschev is actually an elite play. And Chase Hooper, plus 245-ish. It's not amazing, but the grappling upside he carries makes up for it. I think Hooper is a good play as well. And what is Borschev in round 1? Because he is a pure striker. Plus 180. I think that might be the best round 1 line on the slate that we've seen, even out of the big favorites. So I think that both sides of that fight look very, very good. And from a pure metric perspective, dollar for dollar, Borschev looks like the best play on the slate. Whether he wins or not is out of the question, but just the metrics I'm seeing, Borschev is an elite play. Then we got the main event next, Derek Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento. So a 5-round fight that will, in all likelihood, not get anywhere near 5 rounds. Get the under 1.5 juice. So we can expect like 6 minutes of fight time on a median basis. Derek Lewis, we all know him at this point. If he wins, it's by finish, it's by knockout, and it's probably early. So I think Derek Lewis is obviously a very good play. Now, actually, I'll talk about that in a sec. And then Nascimento on the other side, you have, once again, perfectly fine win value for 7.8K, and he'll probably score pretty well if he wins as well. ITD lines, I don't really care about them, but let's just see. Yeah, I mean, each guy is pretty it's good to end by finish, right? The fight's minus 1,400 to not go the distance, and both sides of this look pretty good. Now, what I was going to say is there is a discussion to be had if this fight is way overowned, right? Because this fight we can almost treat as if it's only 3 rounds, and even then we can almost treat as if it's 1 round. So yes, both guys have 90 to 110 point upside, but I wonder if it'll get just way overowned. I don't know if there's a good number that I would say it's overowned or not. Like, it's hard to really quantify it, but I don't know. I think if there's a way to get around it, you have a lot of other good high upside plays on this slate. I'm willing to try to get around the main event if I can. in order to get that extra uniqueness. Tabitha Ricci, Tisha Pennington, very competitive fight. As far as the pure metrics, right, the fight's heavily favored to go all 3 rounds. There's not really any finishing upside. But, Ricci has put up some good scores in her wins, even when they're not by finish. 100 points, 93, 86. It's okay, especially for 8.3K. It's pretty good. And Pennington, 71, 97. I mean, it looks like a dud fight on paper. What's the real-time odds? 63.5, maybe 2.5 takedown line she'll have. Yeah, I guess I'll call it a dud from a pure metric standpoint. But from a pricing standpoint, I think you can make it work. Because these mid-range fights, like 8K through like 7.8K, they just make the lineup go together so well. If you don't add these kinds of fighters, you end up with a lot of stars and scrubs types of builds that are just really hard to get there. But when you add the mid-range, it makes the lineup fit together very easily. So for a lineup construction perspective, I do think that Ricci and Pennington are both fine plays. But from just a metrics perspective, which is what this video is, I got to call the fight a dud. And then last but not least, Veronica Hardy versus JJ Aldrich. Another fight I don't think will rate all too well. Aldrich doesn't really score well in her wins. And Hardy does have some takedown upside, so she actually can score well occasionally, but not really. So I think it's another one of these fights where, yes, the pricing makes it easy to fit into a lineup, but the pure upside just doesn't seem to be there as far as the metrics. And then I feel like I missed a fight. No, I didn't. Okay, I didn't. All right, let's just go over it. Let's just recap. And I guess we'll try to build a good low entry, best plays, GPP lineup at the end as well. So Rebecki, I think, is a good play. Ulberg, I think, is fine. Jousset, I think is a fade. Woodson is a fade. Despaigne is an elite play. Ribovic is a good play. Waters is a good play. Buckley's an elite play. Hadley's a fade. Borschev's an elite play. Derek Lewis is a good play. This whole mid-range, I guess, undecided, but they look pretty bad from a pure metric standpoint. Nascimento, good play. Hooper, good play. Johnson, fade. Ruziboev, good play. Goff, good play. McKinney, good. Cortez Acosta, good play, but me personally, I don't really rate it that well. Caceres, fade. Gooden, Menifield, both fine. Ferreira, probably a fade. So let's go ahead and see if we can fit in all of these elite plays. So Despaigne, McKinney, Buckley, Borschev. I think we can. I think we can pretty easily, actually. So then we got, I guess we'll go to Goff. And then, I mean, yeah, you can get, and then Lewis, yeah. So you can fit in the good plays this week very easily. And, there's a lot of very, how do I want to put this? There's a lot of very high upside combinations on this card. You could do, 3 elite underdogs, 3 big favorites, stars and scrubs type of build. You could do a balanced middling type of build. There's a lot of stuff that you can do on this slate, and I really think this will be a fun slate as far as the lineup construction goes. But yeah, that'll do it. Here's the final list of all the best plays. And best of luck this weekend to everyone. I will see you guys in the next one.